Welcome to Upticks with Jake Falcon, founder and CEO of Falcon Wealth Advisors. In this podcast, we help high net worth individuals overcome financial complexities. We do this by enhancing financial literacy and discussing topics in a language free from industry jargon. Join us as we help explain exactly what having a solid financial plan means, as Jake draws from years of experience in helping hundreds of individuals get financially organized and focused on their goals. We hope you find Upticks educational, entertaining, and shareable. Now, on to the show.
Thank you for joining me back on another episode of Upticks. This is episode 184, Kansas City Real Estate with Linda Hammer. Linda, thank you for joining me on the show.
Good morning.
Good morning. And I know this is a long time coming. I know we were going to do a client event originally with a panel, right? And I thought it was a really good idea, but then COVID hit and all that got thrown out the air. So thank you for joining me on Upticks. I'm very excited to talk about housing and prices and everything that goes into buying and selling a home with you today. But before we dive right into the subject, why don't you share with our audience a little bit more about your background and why you decided to go into the real estate market?
Well, I have spent 32 years in the telecommunications business, as you know, and that's how we met, I believe, because you do a lot of folks in that industry. And after 32 years, I decided I needed a change. So part of the reason that I picked real estate is because I wanted to have my own business, and yet I really like the support and the camaraderie and going to the office, all the things that you get in a normal environment like that. And so this was kind of the best of both worlds, because I'm my own business. I'm a contractor and I make my own hours and take care of things the way I want to do it. And no one really tells me what to do. And then yet I have a lot of support from Better Homes and Gardens Real Estate. And so I really like that blend. And I guess probably the most important thing is I really love helping people. I've been in sales and consultation my entire career, so this is no different. But in the past, I worked with larger government and education clients, mostly very complex process, very, bidding and all these kinds of things. And it's really nice to be able to work with two people or one person who just wants to move on to the next chapter of their life. And I get to help them do that. And I really love that. And I enjoy that a great deal.
Yeah, that's awesome. And so how long have you been in real estate now?
It's been, this spring is 7 years.
Wow. So, I remember when you transitioned from corporate America into this. I can't believe it's already been 7 years.
Yeah.
Wow. Time flies.
Time flies, doesn't it?
It does. Now I know Kansas City, right? It's a huge metroplex, and we have all these different suburbs and towns and areas. That's a big real estate market just in itself. Do you specialize in a specific neighborhood, or do you just basically help people all over the city?
So I really do help people all over the city. I go to where my clients are and where they need me, wherever that might be. I've worked in North Kansas City and Blue Springs and Harrisonville and Olathe and, all over really. But I probably do spend a little more time in Johnson County because that's where I live. But like I said, have clients on both sides of the state line and take care of people wherever they need it.
Gotcha. And so speaking of the people, so do you have like a niche clientele, or is there a certain home price that you feel like a lot about? I don't know, maybe 3,000 square foot homes, like a ton about those, or is that kind of all over as well?
So I don't really specialize in a certain square footage. I do work with a lot of seniors, and I've taken the time to get my senior real estate certification. And so, again, wherever they need help, I work with them. But I do that process of working with seniors as they're trying to downsize, occasionally upsize, but mostly downsize, and move on to the next chapter. I work with them. I also do work with quite a bit of first time buyers as well. Sometimes it's a child of a senior, sort of like you know.
Right.
And like you're trying to help people get to the next chapter in their lives, right? As they're retiring and making changes, and I do the same.
Yeah, that's awesome. I didn't even know there was a senior real estate designation. So it's really cool that you've taken some time to educate yourself on their needs a little bit so you can solve their problems when it comes to homes. Now, there's no secret that home prices have gone through the roof over the last few years, right? And I feel like, you know, they're flying off the shelves. People are making cash offers. They're overbidding. So I'm just curious, with the Fed now coming out and starting to comment that they're basically going to raise interest rates, and mortgage rates have already started to climb. Have you seen any type of slowdown in activity, or what's the vibe like out there in the real estate market today?
So actually, the vibe has not slowed down.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing it slowing down. I will say that in the last month or so, since probably the beginning of the year, we have seen a little bit of a slowdown in sales, but I don't believe it's due to the interest rates. It's due to the inventory. So we have a real inventory problem in what real estate calls a balanced market. We have 6 months of supply of houses. We have not been in a 6-month supply for a long time. And just this year, we're in a 1-month supply.
Wow.
And so it's been, you know, last year, it was low last year too, but from last January to this January, we've gone down 30% in inventory. And so, and that's around the city and as well as in Johnson County, both. And so it just makes it difficult to find homes for people. And so we do need people to list if they're interested. I think that we had a long time where millennials were renting for longer than normal. And so between that and new construction slowing down over not recently, but, you know, for a long time, they haven't caught up yet. And so between all those things and COVID, I think they blended together and made for people not listing as much. Maybe they want to stay put for a little while longer, or they're concerned about it. Sometimes is a little bit of a chicken and egg thing, right? Because they don't know where they can go, so they're afraid to sell. So we do have that happen, but there's a way to make it happen. I mean, you know, life dictates real estate. Real estate does not dictate life. So there's always people moving, right?
That's a really good point. That's a really good perspective on that. And you're right. I think I listened to another podcast about that, especially with 2008, the housing crisis happening. So a lot of home builders got out of the market altogether. And like you said, that's still taking time to catch up. And then I think a lot of seniors also aren't going, I think they call it retire in place. And so instead of going to these senior living communities, they're staying in their homes or buying another home through you that maybe meets their lifestyle more, but they're not going, or they're not moving back in with their kids either. Right. So we've got that big problem. I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know it was only 1 month of inventory. That's fascinating. And so what do you think needs to happen for that to build back up to 6 months?
Well, I do think in the spring, you know, we will see a natural increase. And I do think the combination of the interest rates and the natural increase in inventory that happens in the spring season will help some. So I do think we will see some improvements this spring. But inventory doesn't change like this, right? It takes a little time for that to change. And I hope that part of the issue is not only low supply, but high demand, right? We have all the millennials that start to say, oh, I want to buy, or they were tired of their little apartment where they don't have an office at home to work in, right, during COVID. And so, they want a bigger space. People over the last couple of years have been looking at their space and really kind of making decisions to make changes because they're spending more time at home the last few years. So all those things are coming together. And I do think it's going to improve this year for sure. So we just have to be a little bit more patient, and it requires buyers and sellers to be very prepared when they're to be ready.
Yeah, good point. So that leads me to my next question. And I get this all the time, and I appreciate it, but it's hard for me to comment on it always, because I'll have clients say, Jake, I want to buy a house, or I want to sell my house. Should I do it now or should I wait? So what do you tell people? Because it's tough, right? Because prices are high, so they could sell their house for high, but then they're going to go pay up for something else. So what would you advise someone that's kind of been waiting? Because you made a good point that people probably shouldn't wait. You need to come to the table and be ready. But what advice do you give someone that comes to you like that?
I think it really depends on your own goals and how ready you are, right? Because we can make it happen regardless. I mean, so yes, you will get a higher price maybe for your current home, and you might take it a little bit more when you buy, okay? So it all evens out from that perspective.
Good point.
Right? But, and it just depends on how ready you are and what's important to you, right?
Yeah.
And what I think that people don't realize sometimes, especially seniors, and I include myself in that category to some degree. I mean, we think about downsizing. We have the same, our kids are gone, and we have a whole upstairs that sits there. Unless guests come, we don't use it. So I totally am with them. And so I count myself in that area. But you have to just think about your goals, and it takes longer to get ready than most people think. So if you're not quite there, work on making the improvements in your house, right? Get your house ready for the market. And when I say that, I'm not necessarily saying you should go spend $50,000 or $100,000 to remodel your house. Because my philosophy is that remodel when you can enjoy it and it's good for you.
Yeah.
But smaller steps, smaller remodeling, maybe painting. Painting is always a good thing. It refreshes the house, makes a lot of difference. So smaller things, just making things, make sure they're maintained well, and start to clean out areas, right? I've had some people take as long as a year to get ready.
Wow.
Because they've got this huge basement full of stuff, and maybe they're still working, or maybe they're not, but going through all those things, cleaning out things, closets, those take time to get ready. So those are good things to do if you to get ready. And sometimes it can happen in a month, and sometimes it could take a year.
That's really good advice. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. That makes a lot of sense, actually. Now, what about, I've heard of this term buyer's agent versus seller's agent. So I guess when someone goes and buys a home, whoever they're buying it from typically pays the agents, both agents, right, if there's two involved. But is it really, so should someone seek out a buyer's agent and pay them, or does it matter?
So absolutely, you should seek out a buyer's agent.
Okay.
And the reason is, so let me give you this example. If you go, you don't have an agent, and you just go to an open house, you meet the agent there, the listing agent, and they say, I'd love to help you. I can help you buy this house, whatever. And they can. There's nothing that prevents them from doing that. However, they're not representing you. They have fiduciary responsibility to the seller. Okay. As a buyer's agent, and I work with both buyers and sellers. I don't work on one side only or the other, both. And that's important because you want someone who has the understanding of both sides.
Yeah.
But anyway, a buyer's agent has fiduciary responsibility to you as a buyer. Okay. And the only payment that you're making on to the buyer's agent is usually, most of the companies have a small administrative fee, somewhere in the neighborhood, 250, 350, around in there, 200 to 400 at the max. Ours happens to be 265, but some of them are higher, some of them lower. And you pay that at closing, so you don't pay anything if you're going to work with them and it doesn't work out, you pay nothing. They get paid by the seller. So the listing agent and the seller buying agent gets paid by the seller.
How would I know someone is acting on my behalf? Is it literally like a formal agreement that you're saying I'm going to be?
Yes, there's a formal agreement. And there are certain things that a buyer's agent can do that someone who's not representing you can do. So for example, a buyer's agent will give you recommendations on the offer, help you work through the offer. Whereas if they're not a buyer's agent, they're really not able to tell you what the offer should be and tell their seller, right? Because you can't really represent both sides well.
Right.
So,
Perfect.
but yes, there is a buyer agency agreement.
Got it. And okay, so good. So when someone's shopping for a house, I've heard stories from other clients that sometimes people look at like 30 homes before they make a decision. So do you have a guidance on like how many homes should people really tour before like they're doing it maybe too much? Can you look at too many homes?
No, there's no such thing. It's unique to each individual. Okay. So I customize my approach for each customer, each client. So seniors in particular, we have a lot of experience, right? We've lived in a couple of homes, usually, sometimes one, sometimes more than one. And we know what we want in that next home. And we might be a little pickier than maybe a first-time buyer. And we also maybe have the pleasure of time. So we have a little more time to look and to kind of decide where we want to be. So sometimes it takes a little longer to help that person find that unique home that's going to be right for them. So I sometimes have people look for 6 months, for a year. I have people look. I've had other buyers who have bought something the first time they went out to look.
Wow.
So, I would say that the younger generation probably does more looking online. Everybody looks online. Okay. There's no question, but they maybe do look a little more online, or are used to looking at the pictures and seeing all the differences. And so they may look online for a while before they actually start to go looking. And life is busy. They have kids, they have jobs, and they have all kinds of things going on. So they don't have as much time. But it really depends upon the individual. And so because of my past background, I think I mentioned to you, I work with government and education clients.
Right.
I'm a very patient person. And so even though I'm driven, I am patient with my clients, because I had clients that took 2 years to make decisions in the education market, as an example. So I'm fine with whatever the needs are. My goal is to help my client move to the next chapter in life, and hopefully do that and be happy with it.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you for that answer. It's a great answer. So good. So I've got 2 more questions here for you. And then of course, if you want to add anything. So going into that, what advice would you give to first-time home buyers?
So this market is unique. And so this advice sometimes applies to everyone in the market right now. Okay. So I work with clients and I kind of do some specialized training with them about this market to tell them what to be ready for, what kinds of things happen in the market, what's the competition like, what specific terms and conditions that you need to be thinking about and be ready for. I go through all that. Before we ever go out, I try to explain the whole process and make sure people understand what they're getting into. Because, you're signing, first of all, when you sign contracts, you're signing a big contract, a 30-page contract, worth of documents. And I want people to know what they're signing. And I want people to understand what they're getting into it before they get into it. So I work with them. And I say in general, for first-time buyers, make sure you have a good down payment. Your credit is pre-approved. You've gone through all those steps and you're ready from that standpoint. But then getting down to the specifics of this market, I try to help guide them through that.
Yeah,
and do
really
that
good
for everyone.
Yeah, that's really good. And then what about, so the other side of your other kind of one of your specialties, so what about for seniors? What advice would you give them right now as far as the market is?
So for seniors or anyone who wants to sell and buy, for example, whether it's a senior or not, you have to think about their strategies of what way to go on that situation. So many seniors have their house paid off, right? So oftentimes they can afford to buy first and then sell, okay? And if they can do that, and even if their cash is tied up in the current property, there are ways financially to work with lenders and to make that happen. But if they can buy first and then sell, because the market is selling very quickly, that often makes them less stressed, I will say.
The transition's easier because they have a place to go.
They have a place to go. They know where they're going. Sometimes seniors want to maybe do an estate sale as an example. So I help them with that process. And we kind of work the timing of everything so they can do that. But it does make it easier for people if they are able to buy first and sell after. But sometimes that doesn't work out. So I have buyers that I work with that are, upsizing, and they're in the middle of life. They're not seniors, and they can't afford to do that. So we work with the timing. One of the things that's happened in the marketplace now that makes it, since sellers are in a good position, we can often ask for, and this happens with people who are maybe moving out of town, as an example, we can ask for a rent back. So the typical closing time frame is 30 days, roughly. We can ask for a longer time, but that's the normal. But because sellers in the power position at the moment, they can say, okay, well, now I want to get my money, and then I'm going to go to Chicago or wherever I'm going, and then I'm going to buy, but I don't have to move for another 30 days because I'm going to rent my property back and stay in place until I can close on my new place and try to avoid moving twice. If we can do that, that's great. I know most sellers want to do that. Nobody likes to move twice,
Right.
But it just, everything is driven by the goals of the client.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really good. That's a really good advice. I haven't heard of that much. Maybe one of the time. I didn't know that it was that you could write that into the deal though. So that's awesome. So perfect.
Yes.
So Linda, I know you've probably got a busy day scheduled. So is there anything else you want to leave our audience with before you and I wrap up here?
Yeah, I just, I want to say that, like I mentioned before, I work with both buyers and sellers, and I'm connected to a global network all over the country and globally. And so I can help someone regardless if they're moving out of town and they need a referral to go to Florida or go wherever they want to move to, or buy a second home. I can work with them to connect them with the right people. But, regardless of whether somebody works with me or somebody they know, the most important thing is two things. they get someone that they can trust and count on. And second, they get someone who's going to put their goals ahead of the realtor's goals. So
Thank you.
that's what I would leave everyone with, that I think that's very important when you're choosing a realtor.
Thank
So,
you. That's just like us being fiduciaries, like you said. I love
yes,
that. I
it's
think
the
that's
same
great.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So if
really
I can help, you love to have coffee or get to know someone, Jake's got my contact information, but really it's all about just making sure you pick the right person for you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Linda. Thank you for joining us. This was very insightful. And like Linda said, if you want Linda's contact information, feel free to send me an email at jake@falconwealthadvisors.com. I'm happy to pass on her contact information. So for our fun, quick topic, Linda, it was crazy in Kansas City yesterday. Were you out and about in that weather showing homes? I hope not.
Luckily, I got to stay home. I rearranged my schedule for, yet Wednesday so I have lots of work to do, but got to do it on the computer. And yeah, it was great. So
Good.
every once in a while, those days at home are really nice.
They are nice. And that's why you own your own business. So that's good.
Yes.
Well, thank you again
So-
for joining me. And we hope all of you out there are staying safe and healthy, and have a great week.
And thank you so much for the opportunity to talk with you, Jake. It was fun.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to Upticks. Click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. Also, be sure to visit our website, falconwealthadvisors.com, and click the Contact Us button if you'd like to meet with Jake and his team.